welcome back to the Talkoffame podcast. My guest this week on the podcast is Davida Padi. Davida is a digital wellness advocate and Teen Vogue 21 under 21. She's also a social media strategist and pre-law student based in the New York Mediterranean area in Washington, D.C. While Davida specializes in social media and mental health, her passion lies in public policy and digital storytelling. She is so passionate about using her creativity to communicate with others. She has worked with, but not limited to, Pinterest, MTV, Rare Beauty, and the White House, while continuing to enter her undergrad degree in social media strategies in University of Scranton. She is looking to utilizing her skill set to bring mental health resources globally while demonstrating that creativity and involving every aspect of life. Davida's work is so amazing, and as mentioned before, that her work is so inspiring, especially as she's in college and everything. It's absolutely terrific. But but Davida, welcome to the Talkoffame podcast. We're so honored to have you on the podcast today and chat with you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I know we were kind of talking about this before, but what kind of pushed you to start bringing mental health resources globally?
So I think again during the pandemic, everything was on a lockdown. So really just trying to have mental health resources that specifically were interactive and that kind of bridge community because I think within social media, what we love about social media is like the social aspect and less of like the media aspect. I think that's what we're seeing a lot with like Instagram, like the media and aesthetic photos. But I think the social aspect of like social media and having a community was super important. And I think that's why like TikTok flourished during the pandemic. So kind of having something similar to that, but for mental health resources and also engaging like people who look like me.
Oh, for sure. Like, even if it's like when you start like a TikTok or social media, like you always see people like posting aesthetic photos and like them living your best life. But then at the same time, it's just like, why am I not living life like they are? Like, why is my life, kind of boring and they're living life every single day? But it's like you said, like TikTok, Instagram really grew the pandemic because these people didn't really have that social interaction in person, face to face, because of course during the pandemic everyone wanted to be safe and not getting sick and getting their family sick. So the only way to communicate was through social media like Instagram, TikTok, and everything. That's because like with those social media, like people are just looking for that sort of interaction, so they kind of relied on TikTok, social media, and everything to kind of get that sort of interaction.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how did you kind of grow comfortable with and drawn to the kaleidoscope of different cultures and languages that mark your youth?
So I think it's funny. I wrote my essay to get into college about like the fear of airport security,
Oh,
because I
really?
think that it was like something that I was always scared of, like I had a fear. But I think one of like my favorite things about traveling was meeting people and like kind of getting connections. And so like even coming to college, I think I currently work at like the Office of Global Education. And I love it because you meet so many people with different cultures. And it's like, yes, we're from different areas of the country or even at different areas of the world, but we're able to find like something that we can learn and kind of connect within that. And I think that's like why I love social media, and like the digital spaces where like we're able to actually forge and build connections with people that live so far from us.
Oh, for sure. It's like when we connect with people through social media, whether it's like through a podcast, events, or just like regular social media scrolling through and just click on their page and you're like, oh, I need to like meet them or something and just connect with them. Then that's really how I like, especially as like maybe influencer podcasters, that like we meet people usually through social media, but when we meet them in person, they're like, you're actually real. Like, how is this possible? But what made you kind of decide to kind of go to college down here in northeastern Pennsylvania?
It was actually funny. I was always interested in studying like politics or
Mhm.
law. I always wanted to go to law school. But I also love social media in the way that like how we can actually interact with it. So like the metrics of it and like what actually makes social media so like important in our lives. Like why do we consume so much of it? Like why can't students and people put their phone down? Like what is the thing about social media that attracts it? So my mom actually found like social media strategies and the only school or like one of two of the only schools was the University of Scranton. So it was that. And then also, I think that within a lot of students, it's the money and just
Mhm.
finding an affordable college, specifically because I want to go to law school. So seeing like the long term, I obviously don't want to be in too much debt. And I think this was like the place that had like the mixture of both of those two things.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's like with me as well. I wanted to go to college in 2 years for something political or law because I don't know, because I'm a big, like Law and Order fan, and so like with and everything what's going on, I'm it's like why can't and some of my favorite TV shows are basically kind of political or law based. And it's like it made me, like basically want to become like some sort of career in law or political. But when people hear that, they are like, political? Are you serious? Like, you're not gonna last. Like, how's that gonna possible? But that's like, wow, I'm kind of love using my voice and things that matter. So I might as well use that, as a way to kind of make a difference, not only in my community, but also different states, countries, everything around the world. And like, how was kind of like your deep dive into kind of going to college and going to kind of law based, political based career?
Yeah, so it's funny. I feel like I'm the only social media strategies, and my concentration is in legal studies. So I feel like that's very interesting just because I'm able to like navigate like my social media strategies and like that coursework, but also get experience. And so recently, like with this school, they have a partnership in DC, so you can take an internship in DC. And I was there for last fall semester, and I think it was really nice to see the ins and outs of DC and just like how things work policy wise, but just like the whole city of DC. I think it's such a beautiful city. And I
Oh
think sometimes the politics kind of gets in between like the whole nuance of the city, but it's so beautiful. And just learning and seeing people who are really active in their community, making strides. And I think that is like the area that I really want to get into. And I think that like, legal studies and digital well-being, they kind of can intersect
yeah.
specifically with policy wise and other areas.
Yeah, definitely. And you founded Eve's Corner, a digital community for Black girls to find scholarships, mental health services, and support. Like, how does Eve's Corner kind of help bring awareness to girls that are in need of support or services in terms of like mental health or school or support when they're in need?
Yeah, I feel like even when I created Eve's Corner, I was still accessing the resources. Like going into my first year of college, I will say that it was a little bit of a culture shock, specifically like to be in Scranton. And
Mhm.
I think that's when like my mental health did suffer a lot. And so I didn't see a lot of people like me in like the peer well-being spaces at my university. So one thing that I loved was actually going and seeing my own resources, and just clicking on them and seeing videos and anything I would find looking for my own mental health, I would put it on my website just in case someone was in like the similar predicament as I was. And I think that's why I think it's so important because I think people don't really have resources, or if they do have resources, it's like a limited amount. So continuing on with that journey of like finding scholarships is another big thing because
Mhm.
people don't realize how like expensive school is and how it can impact your own mental health. And so again, having like that holistic view of like how people cope in the different spaces we are in like the mental space is super important, and just like the well-being space as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's like with being in Scranton and kind of being raised between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre. It's like living in between Wilkes-Barre and Scranton, there's basically different cultures in the areas. Like you'll see all different cultures no matter what place you go, whether it's like Scranton, Pittston, Allentown, like the surrounding areas, like you will see different cultures, and sometimes you will feel like there's no one like you, and why is the school costs so much, but I want to go here so bad. It's just like when people like sometimes ask me like, oh, where do I want to go and to college in 2 years, and I'm just like, I'm still gonna have my options, but these are some list of options and that I want to kind of maybe consider, but it's like the main problem that people tell me and that I sometimes consider, well, I should probably consider it the whole time, but sometimes I do, but not all the time. But it's like really how much yearly the school is going to charge you for going to school there. And that is like kind of like the main problem that me and my family have been talking about. Is just like when you are going to college, the main thing is how much you are getting education you are needed for your specific career, whether it's like business, nutrition, law school, or political science, journalism, whatever you major in. It's like everything comes at a cost. Not, I know with a lot of schools they offer scholarships, but it's also sometimes very difficult to get those scholarships at the same time. So it's like, even if you get the scholarships, there's always kind of the sometimes a price to kind of go to that school and pay sometimes a lot of money when you're going there or even after you graduate.
Yeah, and even like within my school, there's something called scholarship displacement, which I think like a lot of younger or students who are going to college should know about. And it's basically that even if you get a lot of money to cover your full tuition of scholarships or your whole like entire cost, the university could actually take some of the money that you take, and it's actually legal in Scranton. And they can take the money that they give you, and so you actually end up paying them back for getting the scholarships. And so it's like little things like that, which is like, people go to school to enter like a degree in education, but then you're taking money that they make from like applying to scholarships and all those stuff. So it's a lot.
It definitely is. Like when you started Eve's Corner, like how did you kind of get the inspiration to start it?
I think there are so many, again, it was during the pandemic. So there are so many people who were creating organizations and who were doing like this work, but it wasn't, I think, very specific with who they were kind of wanting to join their websites and wanting to be engaged with their platform. And so it was definitely during like that time where I saw a lot of people online being active in political work or being active in public policy. And I think that's what was so important to me. And I was working for like my local mayor at that time. So it was just seeing like different ways where people around me were getting active in their own area and own community. And I thought I could do that.
Oh, I love that. Like, it's just like when you are doing these type of areas, it's like when you have that mindset to kind of be like, oh, I can do that if other people are too. And it's like when you have that mindset of like, oh, I can do that, you just kind of go straight forward to doing whatever you want to do, whether it's like working for your mayor or a local politician. It's just like it just brings you that started to, lift me up to being like, oh, I want to work for this mayor or I want to work with this local politician. Like, what do I have to do to kind of get that idea? Because even if you get those opportunities for before college, it can kind of help you kind of get that experience before college and kind of gain your experience and use that on your resume to go to college in case like people, some colleges really kind of consider that like resume in that certain field you're majoring in, and it can also help maybe with some scholarships as well, so it can really kind of build out some things when in terms of going to college or where you want to major.
Yeah, exactly.
And like how do you like use your creativity to communicate with others?
I think it's definitely like website designing or platform
Mhm.
or even like social media. I tried to stay a little bit back from social media, but I still do work with other organizations. And so I do like things like design their merch or platform materials or whatever. And I think that's really where I find like the joy in campaigns and just PR, graphic design, website designing, and just using that because I think, especially our generation, we are like kind of always on our phone or online. So that's probably going to be the first form of like media or anything that you see about a topic, you're going to find it on the digital space.
Yeah, for sure. And so like you could like especially with our generation having cell phones or computers, like you'll find anything and everything on social media. Like you can look up someone's name and you'll find this much information about it online, which is absolutely insane because it's like, like you look up someone's name and you're just like you can see everything about them, like where they live, their phone number, how many siblings they have. Like you will see everything. And it's like when we are doing public relations or working for a local campaign or we're looking for doing like a little business to kind of make website designs or something, you have to gain this so much information to kind of build a website, even though I'm sure it's for the same as you as well, but it's like I love creating, and it's like whenever it's like making a social media post on Canva or making a reel or um creating a website, changing things on the website, like anything that is like creative wise is just like it is like I just love kind of bringing those ideas to kind of my platform to kind of bring our ideas to light in terms of that. But do you think your mental health journey or experiences, like do you ever like bring those experiences kind of to your work on social media or through your platforms?
Yeah, definitely. I think even within like the digital well-being space, working in social media, I think a lot of like how I view social media and what it does to my own mental health has inspired like me to be more proactive with like posting about social media and the, cons or the effects that it can give to students and young people especially, and just making sure that what they know that they're seeing is not always the truth and not always real, and also to making sure that they have breaks and having a healthy relationship with social media. Because I remember learning from like hashtag half the story, an organization that I work with, that like social media is a spectrum. And so we're not all using social media in the same way, but it's
Mhm.
also important to take kind of breaks and just really know where we are. If like we can't live without our phones, it's probably an addiction. And
Yeah.
we honestly, it's not our fault, but there are ways for us to kind of cope with it. And so I think that's a really big part of my own mental health journey is like finding, I think, time away from my phone and time that I can spend like reading, exercising, doing ballet, something I think that's more productive to my own mental well-being.
Yeah, I love that. It's just like when we are addicted to our phones or social media or everything, it can kind of prevent like how we live our lives, whether it's like going to read a book or maybe going on a run or trying to do something productive. But sometimes like we just get lost up on the social media that we forget to do those things, and it can really damage our mental health. Because like from my experience, when I'm scrolling through social media, I'm just like, why is this person living their best life while I'm just sitting here doing work all the time? Like, why am I doing so much work at 17 years old? Like, why is this, why am I living my life? This is why everyone's going out. But it's like you're just living yourself down, like getting to you, like the anxiety getting to you. Like not like sometimes I'll tell myself like not a lot of people are doing kind of what you're doing at this moment. And at 17 years old, and it's like when you get off that social media, I try to kind of limit myself with social media each day. So to kind of get stuff done and to kind of don't deal with that self doubt because I deal with anxiety. So it brings so much anxiety more than I can usually get to. And so when I'm not on my phone, whether it's like I go for a run or run a couple miles or doing an interview like this or just doing some things I need to get done that day. So I won't have to be on my phone. Since, with being on your phone, like sometimes when you go on it, you would never get off. Like, so it's like when you get off that phone, maybe go on it as a break for after schoolwork for maybe 2 minutes. They
Yeah,
answer some phone messages or talk to friends or something. But then make sure to just put it down so you can get that work done. Because if you don't put that certain amount of time in, you just kind of need to limit that and trying to make your mental health good so you can live every single day, like basically live your life every single day.
exactly.
But like, why? Like, people probably are wondering, like, why is mental health kind of a topic on this podcast and everything? But why is, like, in your opinion, mental health important? And how are you trying to, break the stigma in mental health?
I think mental health is so important because it literally can dictate everything you do. And I think that a lot of times, as you said, the stigma is very present. I
Mhm.
was recently studying abroad in Europe and Spain specifically, and we were trying to do like an activation and thinking through ways. And I feel like for them, it is more stigmatized than us. I just realized that. And so actually bringing awareness to how mental health affects everybody. And I think the fact of the matter that it has no, boundaries because it can affect people in so many different ways, young, old, different ages. And so I think it's super important to shed a light on like, mental health, yes, but also the cultural aspect of well-being and how it kind of plays a role into the youth, especially since we're seeing such a big mental health crisis.
Exactly. It's just like when you were going through that with social media, like it can make, like you said, a big mental health crisis because when people are seeing stuff on social media, it can change their perspective on what they do, especially during the pandemic. The social media and everything that involves social media really skyrocketed because the only thing we can do is really watch television or go on our phones. But it was also a main factor to kind of pursue their dreams online. I know, like we both talked, like we started some of our career stuff during the pandemic. So it really was a major, shift in terms of people pursuing their dreams, trying to get things done, trying to not focus on their phones, even though it was a main factor. But I feel like it was kind of like a main push to really, get ourselves out there and kind of using our time to boost our platform, to really use our voice in what we believe in, whether it's like mental health or politics, what's going on. I know like people have so many things they want to share, like in terms like what they believe in. But every platform, and I know I realized, was different in every way because people obviously have different opinions. So it's like with every platform, they share their opinions, but that is like a major shift because I realized like when during the pandemic, people started to really, put themselves out there and use their opinions and kind of use their voice and what they believe in.
Yeah.
But the last thing I have to like wanted to ask you before we head off, but what is some advice for someone who wants to make change in terms of mental health?
I definitely would say, I think a lot of times we think of like starting our own organization, which I think is super important.
For sure.
But one of my friends recently was talking about actually joining in with other organizations in your community who are actually doing the work. I think that it's great to be stand alone, but I think having a community and people to fall back on and people to uplift you is really important. So really joining in with other organizations who are doing the work. NAMI has a few chapters. Active Minds as well is a really good place for college students who are interested in like building community around mental health. And there's so many others. I think Bring Change to Mind as well comes to mind for high school students. And so there are always, I think, organizations who are looking for more students to be engaged with their work. So I think definitely starting on a community-based level and then just going up and connecting more people and for people to find your work. I think that's like one of the best ways that you can really get involved.
Oh, definitely. I love that. And I want to thank everyone for listening to this episode of Talk of Fame. I hope everyone took as much information as I did from Davida. It like everything you're doing is absolutely amazing and it's making such a difference. And I love everything you're doing. And make sure everyone to go check her out. Like, where can people follow you on social media if they want to connect with you?
So my Instagram is hello Davy P. I usually don't actually post on it only for a few campaign activations that I do. But you can also find me on LinkedIn at Davida Padi. But I think, you can find my platform, which is where I am most of the time at Eve's Corner. But yeah,
Amazing. So everyone go check her out on social media. I totally recommend. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And thank you, Davida, for coming on. I mean so much.
thank you for having me.
Of course. Have a great rest of your day.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thanks, bye.